Hi guys, remotes are even relevant in 2024. Sofabaton, the company behind Sofabaton X1S, thinks so, and I'm here to answer this question. However, there's a slight problem. First thing, I do not own a TV, or the media TV stands, to be fair. TV would be usually somewhere probably in here behind me, but it's not there. What I do own is a projector in a bedroom and I own a sofa. So that makes me at least 50% qualified to answer the question about Sofabaton. So here we are. Perhaps I got it wrong in the past because I've been trying to replace the use of remotes with different solutions like voice controls, maybe using my phone with infrared blaster because that's what I've got as well, and other automation. But each time I would go back to a humble remote, mostly because voice controls are very clunky, you have to remember them, they get lengthy and annoying. Other automations are not always perfect, and let's face it, grabbing a remote control, it's quite natural and it's very practical. A new solution? To use one remote instead of however many you've got. And Sofabaton X1S has got you covered, and we're gonna talk about my impressions with it. So the set consists of the base unit and a remote. This is a Bluetooth remote. You won't be aiming at devices, you won't be aiming at anything really, just press the button at your convenience and the signal is gonna be sent to the base. Base will propagate that signal either via Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or infrared because it supports those three protocols. At the core, the base is an infrared blaster, 360-degree blaster, that will propagate infrared signal around the room. Now, apart from that, it supports Bluetooth, so you'll be able to select a pretty rich list of Bluetooth controllers and also some of the Wi-Fi controllers and remotes, for example, for devices like Fire TV Stick, Roku, or NVIDIA Shield. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the Wi-Fi devices, so I wasn't able to check it, but I gave it a go with the Bluetooth controllers and my infrared remotes. Probably noticed that the base is black and shiny and it attracts the dust quite well, but other than that, it's pretty featureless. At the back, you'll find a pairing button, USB Type-C for power, and two input jacks for external infrared probes. This is helpful because if you want to hide this somewhere or extend the range of your infrared blaster, you can just extend the probes and situate them in such a way that they will trigger your devices. Now the cables obviously aren't long enough to reach separate rooms, etc., but you'll be able to get pretty good coverage inside one of the rooms. The remote controller, or baton, it's actually pretty nice to hold. I like how it feels in the hand. It's a Bluetooth controller with USB Type-C inputs, and it's supposed to last up to 60 days on a single charge, which, to be honest, after a month of use, it's pretty much spot on track to reach that time. The remote is split into two parts. At the upper part, you will see the display on which you can select different options using very nicely textured scroll and clickable wheel, and two extra buttons to help you with navigation. In the bottom section of the remote, you have the typical remote layout. Those are the most popular buttons that you can find on any remote. That includes D-pad and the most popular buttons that you can find on different controllers. What I really like about this remote is equipped in a motion sensor, so it lights up as soon as you take it to your hand. And additionally, all but the four color buttons at the bottom come with a highlight, so you will be able to operate this at night without trying to guess which button is which. But there are a couple of things I would improve about this remote because my first annoyance are the location of the off and the back button. I understand they've been separated from entire remotes to kind of make them a little bit harder to reach, but in practice, once you learn the layout, they should be really next to that scroll wheel, so you don't have to reach out with your hand and operate them in a little bit awkward way. The second thing I missed is probably more physical buttons. For example, something like 0 to 9 keypad would be really handy for some operations. But don't worry, if at first glance you think there isn't enough buttons for your use case, you can add virtual buttons that will be displayed on the screen. However, to get to those, you'll have to use the scroll wheel, which is not always. Sofabaton display has 3 different menus. Settings, well, it means what it means. It's just the settings for this device. Other than that, we have device and activities. Now, devices, it's pretty much easy to figure out. Those gonna be all the remotes that you've added to the ecosystem via app and storing the layouts on the universal remote. From that menu, you'll be able to select your device and associate the layout to your main buttons or access extra buttons using the scroll wheel and a menu that displays on the LCD. Activities, it's the more interesting one because it's a kind of like automation-alike system that allows you to daisy chain different remotes and different commands into single actions. On top of that, activities act as trigger. So when you enter an activity, you are in this state and you can trigger the list of different devices to different settings. And thanks to separate power configurations, you'll be able to, with a single click, leave that activity and disable all of the devices that you've been using previously. It's very clever and very handy. The more I started to use activities, the more functions I actually discovered. There are different settings for power, so the device has got you covered if you have different power buttons on your remote to power on and off your device. If the device requires the buttons to be pressed for longer, you can also execute that via app, and you can add delays between different functions, which is super handy if you're trying to time different commands and chain them together. By default, if you enter an activity, once everything has been triggered, the last device added to the list of activity in that activity will become your main layout for this main button layout on the remote. But you can also add like shortcuts in the screen to activate different shortcuts on different devices that you have assigned already to your remote. And that way you can still change, for example, different equalizers on your sound system for different scenarios without leaving the main layout for your remote control, which let's say it's set up for navigation menu of your TV stream you're watching. In short, you'll spend a little bit of time tuning everything to your preference, and once you do that, you'll find this operating really, really well. So what is like in use? Obviously, I've mentioned to you that I don't have a TV, so the major use case is through the window right now. However, in my bedroom, I have a projector, PlayStation, and soundbar. So I promptly set all of these remotes up together. I've opened the app and I've recorded my infrared remotes using the base. So I had to just point at the base and I assigned the action to my new layout. After that, I was done. I was super pleased when I discovered in a Bluetooth selection of controllers that PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 are supported. So that means I could leave my controller behind and start using it this way. Now, I couldn't turn on the PlayStation using remote because that's the limitation of the PlayStation itself. However, since PlayStation uses ARC, as soon as my projector was on, the PlayStation would follow. It was very handy to see in activities that I can select which devices turn on first in case they have a longer boot up time, and that I could also assign different inputs on activities, meaning that by default I could select an activity that would link my first channel of projector to PlayStation instead of different input. It's super handy and I like this feature a lot. I know that manually adding each remote that you have and configuring it fully with an app gets a little bit tedious, so there is a nice little feature, community settings, that you can download different devices to your app and use the presets created by people like me and you. I've submitted a couple of layouts already because I'd like to share my devices too, and I found it quite helpful. So for example, with the PlayStation, all I had to do is just to select the device and my configuration was downloaded onto the app and I was able to use it in seconds. Obviously, not all of the devices is going to be there, and sometimes this system is prone to error depending on who submitted the data. Another shortcoming that I found was associated with PlayStation itself. I had absolutely no problem operating this in PlayStation menus. I could change different apps. Obviously, I wouldn't be playing games using the remote, but as soon as I entered Amazon Prime app, the remote became unresponsive and I didn't know why. It's not just me, because I've checked that online and it looks like for some reason PlayStation kind of uses a different way of sending the commands, and that's why this remote becomes unusable. As soon as I left the PlayStation using my PlayStation controller, I was regaining control of my PlayStation menu and I was able to move around as before. I kind of understand the problem, because in a world of remotes there isn't really any standards to follow and every company just makes what they want with them, and it's hard to create a unified library for a single device that would support it all. While scrolling to the app, I discovered a couple of extra settings, one of which is obviously support for Google Home and Alexa ecosystem. So you'll be able to link your device to these smart speakers and trigger the same controls that you would from the remote with a voice control. Obviously, it's not the most convenient way of getting things done, but it works, so hey, I'm not going to complain about it. But what's more interesting to me was the API exposed by Sofabaton app. Now, it turns out that your activities can be linked to the URL and you can make a web request from pretty much anything you want to trigger the same activity using your command using a base. That means I could use a Node-RED, a Home Assistant to trigger the same command via web browser and ask my base station to issue a command, which opens up new possibilities. So far, so good, but there are two things that I really need to address. First of all, Sofabaton X1S, it's quite pricey. Right now, at the time of this review, the set costs you $189.99, which is still cheaper than Logitech, which it was almost twice the price at launch. But the good news is they managed to get you a 20% discount, so check out the description of this video for more information. It's still a lot of money, but you can have it cheaper. The second fact is that if you're going to get yourself a Sofabaton X1S, you're getting obviously one set, which practically speaking is gonna outfit one room for you. So be smart about it, as Bluetooth remotes and Wi-Fi remotes can still work probably from everywhere. However, you'll have to pick a location for your base because infrared blasting is going to be limited to that room. Now, if you want to expand that and have one remote to operate more than one room, you're going to need more bases and you need to spend even more money to, well, essentially pay for your convenience. So a big part of me really wants to like this, but considering that I don't have a TV or typical media cabinet in my living room, maybe I personally don't see that much value in this, but your situation might be much different. It's not a bad device that will struggle with the fact that there are no standards in the remote world and not all of the devices will be easily supported. But considering that it comes with a community of eager people to share their remote setups, it's a pretty nice ecosystem to be in. So do tell me, guys, are the remotes relevant in 2024? I can see benefits of not setting everything up via home automation or your phone because a remote is easier to share between family members or guests. But at the same time, you're gonna pay a lot of money for that convenience. So big thanks for Sofabaton for sending me this for review so I could check it out and make my cinema sessions so much easier to execute in bed. And if you're interested, the links to this product is going to be in the description of this video. As for now, I'm going to take this, go to the bedroom, connect it and maybe watch a movie. And you know already that I do not have a posting schedule, so if you want to know what's going to happen next, well, use YouTube tools provided. Now, a couple of social media links, consider following me there if you want to keep in touch and start a conversation going. Thanks so much for watching and see you next time. Bye! I need to get ready, and by get ready I need to get my script up because I forgot to open it. Almost there, almost there. Maybe exposure correction. That is so much better. Maybe right from the top. That is better. Okay. It helps if I bring the thing because it's my bedroom. I'm ready for this. Hi guys!